notice that all experience is accompanied by the fact of being aware. What legitimacy is there then to our belief? When I say our belief, I mean our world culture's belief that there is something outside awareness, something called a world or a universe made out of dead inert stuff called matter. Is that hypothesis based on experience, or is it based on belief? Other scientists who claim a world made of dead inert matter existing outside consciousness, are they true scientists, basing their theories only on the evidence of experience? Or are their theories based on abstract beliefs that can never be verified in experience? Strangely, the scientific community that claims a world outside consciousness has never come in contact with that world. Could it be that it doesn't exist? Or at least it doesn't exist on the terms in which it is conceived? Could it be that the entire, what we call the universe, is an appearance within awareness or consciousness? After all, that is what our experience tells us. Could it be that each of our minds are like localizations of an infinite field of consciousness, through the agency of which consciousness knows itself as the world? Just as when we fall asleep at night, we dream, we imagine an entire world within our own minds, and yet we view that world from the perspective of a separate subject of experience within that world. Could it be that each of our minds are like dreams in the mind of infinite consciousness? Or to use religious language, each of our minds are like dreams in the mind of God, through which infinite consciousness, or God's infinite being, seems to divide itself into two parts: a subject that knows and an object that is known, just as we do at night when we dream. Our own mind divides itself into two parts: a dreamed world and a separate dreamed character from whose point of view that world is known. In other words, the dreamed character, the character in the dream, is the agency through which our mind knows itself as the dreamed world. Could it be that each of our minds are like localizations through which infinite consciousness knows itself as the world? After all, that is in line with our experience. Is there anyone here who is currently experiencing anything other than the knowing of your experience. Explore your experience now, whatever you are experiencing, your so-called outside experience of the world, your internal experience of thoughts and feelings. Can you find anything other than the knowing of your experience? The consciousness of your experience. Have any of you ever come in contact with anything other than the knowing of experience? And if we were to ask the same question to any of the 7 billion of us, as long as they understood the question, has anyone ever experienced, could anyone ever experience anything other than the knowing or the consciousness of experience? In other words, if we investigate like honest scientists, relying only on the evidence of experience, this knowing or consciousness is all that is ever experienced. And it is possible to explain the whole of reality on the basis of consciousness alone, without recourse to an abstract world made of matter, which nobody has ever or could ever come in contact with. Whatever we are experiencing, we are aware of it. Whatever thoughts are taking place in our mind, they are known. We are aware of them. Whatever we might be feeling. We may be depressed, lonely, sad, or we may be at peace, ecstatically happy, or newly in love. Whatever we are feeling, we are aware of those feelings. Whatever we are perceiving, that is, whatever sights, sounds, tastes, textures, and smells are present, we are aware of them. If our eyes are open, we are aware of the sight of this room. The sound of my voice is known. So see that being aware or knowing accompanies all experience, irrespective of the content of experience. So become interested in the experience of being aware. Become interested in the knowing with which your experience is known. That is, cease being exclusively fascinated by your thoughts and feelings, by your sensations and perceptions. Cease even being interested in the words that I am speaking. Be interested in that with which they are known. the awareness with which we are aware of them. Remember, when I speak of being aware, I'm speaking of yourself, not some abstract consciousness. I'm speaking of the very awareness with which each of us is now aware of our experience, commonly known as I, myself. That which each of us essentially is. Now notice that being aware, or awareness itself, is not just the ever-present background of all experience. It is the field or space within which all experience is taking place. Are any of you now experiencing anything that is not taking place in the field of awareness or consciousness? Have any of you ever had an experience that did not take place in the field of awareness? Would it be possible to have an experience that did not take place in consciousness? See that what you essentially are is not just the background, the ever-present background of all knowledge and experience, but the field, the space-like presence within which all experience takes place. Common name for the knowing with which all knowledge and experience are known. The common name for the experience of being aware or awareness itself is I. I know my thoughts. I am aware of my feelings and sensations. I perceive the world. In other words, when I suggest be aware of the knowing with which your experience is known, or be aware of the experience of being aware, it's another way of saying simply, be aware of yourself. Be aware of that to which we refer when we say I. Not the thoughts that we have, not the feelings, sensations, and perceptions that come and go in our experience. But I, the knowing element, the aware element in all experience. When I say become aware of yourself or become aware of the experience of being aware, due to the limitations of language, I subtly suggest that you are one thing and awareness is something else that you can be aware of, in the same way that you are aware of the sound of my voice or the sight of this room. I don't mean to imply that. You are the awareness. I am the awareness with which all knowledge and experience are known. So I am speaking to you, awareness. You, awareness. Cease for the time being shining the light of your knowing, shining your attention on the objects of experience. And come back to yourself. I'm saying to awareness, be aware of yourself, be aware of being aware. Awareness is knowledge of itself. Being aware of being aware is a unique experience. It is the only experience there is. The only experience there is that does not take place in subject-object relationship. The I that knows is the I that is known. The sun that illuminates is the sun that is illuminated. All other knowledge and experience take place in duality. I know my thoughts. I love you. I perceive the tree. A subject knowing, feeling, or perceiving an object. But in this unique experience, awareness is knowledge of itself. The subject of the experience and the object of the experience are one. So don't try to find yourself, don't try to find the experience of being aware as an object of experience, as one might find a thought, a feeling, a sensation, or a perception. Just allow your attention to come back to rest in its source or essence. Being aware of being aware doesn't seem to be much from the point of view of the object-knowing mind. But if we are being aware of the experience of being aware, if we are knowing the knowing with which all knowledge and experience are known, we are engaged in the highest form of prayer or meditation there is. It is the meditation for which all other meditations are a preparation. notice that the fact of being aware is the common element in all experience, the common factor in all knowledge and experience. It runs, so to speak, ever present throughout all changing experience. The objects of knowledge and experience are continuously changing. Has anyone here ever had a thought, feeling, sensation or perception that didn't change, that didn't appear and at some point disappear? It is obvious that the objects of experience are continuously changing, continually appearing and disappearing. But the experience of being aware, or awareness itself, remains continuously present throughout all experience. In fact, the experience of being aware is the only element of experience that is continuous, or more accurately, ever present. We think that our bodies are continuous. We think that the world is continuous and that awareness or consciousness is something fleeting and fragile that comes into existence and then disappears. If we stay close to the evidence of experience like a true scientist, we find that the opposite is in fact true. All that is known of the experience of the body or world is a series of fleeting and changing sensations and perceptions. The experience of being aware is the only experience that remains continuously present. In other words, the body and the world borrow their apparent continuity from the ever-presence of awareness. The experience of being aware is always in the same condition. At breakfast this morning, whatever it is that was aware of your experience is in exactly the same condition as whatever it is that is currently aware of your experience. All your thoughts, images, feelings, sensations and perceptions have changed numerous times since breakfast this morning. But being aware has remained constant throughout. And not just breakfast this morning, but whatever you were experiencing yesterday, last week, last year, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Being aware remains in the same condition throughout, is in the same condition now as it was when we were 5-year-old girls or boys. It hasn't changed, it hasn't moved, it hasn't aged. No experience has added anything to it or removed anything from it. It is at once one with all experience and independent of all experience. Like the space of this room, it touches intimately everything that appears within it, but is utterly free from whatever appears within it. Thus its nature is peace. It stands to gain nothing nor lose anything from experience. It is inherently or innately fulfilled. Thus its nature is happiness. When I say its nature, I mean your nature, the essence of your own mind is innately peaceful, innately fulfilled, not as a result of any particular experience, but a peace that is prior to all experience. Now, is there anyone here who, as a child, did not at some stage lie awake in bed, wondering how far physical space goes on? Did anyone not have that? Ask themselves that question. So ask yourself the same question now. Imagine you are a child lying awake in bed in the middle of the night, not asking yourself, how far does physical space go on? But how far does the field of awareness within which my experience appears go on? Don't think this through. You are the field of awareness within which your experience appears. Therefore, you are in the perfect position to be a true scientist and investigate that field. So now, with your attention, don't give your attention to my words or your thoughts, or the perception of this room, but with your attention, travel through the field of awareness, the space-like presence of awareness within which your experience is appearing. How far does it go? See if you can find the edge of it. See if you can find the place at which it ends and whatever it is that is outside awareness begins. Can you find that edge? And if any of you do find what appears to be an edge to awareness, ask yourself the question, is that not an object appearing in the field of awareness? Travel again with your attention. Try to find the edge or the border of the field in which your experience appears. Has anyone found that edge? In fact, if we did this experiment with anyone, if we asked them this question, and as long as they understood the question and did the experiment, they would arrive at the same conclusion. I cannot find anything outside the field of awareness in which all experience arises. What are the implications of this possibility? It implies that whatever it is that whatever or whoever seems to be outside of ourselves, in other words, all others, all objects, and the world, although they may be outside of our limited, finite minds, they are not outside of the infinite field of consciousness out of which our finite minds are made. In other words, the implications of this possibility is that everyone and everything is a modulation of a single, infinite, indivisible whole. Seemingly separate from ourselves, seemingly made out of something other than ourselves. But in reality, an integral part of the same infinite, indivisible whole. In other words, although experience seems to comprise a multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves, if we look through that appearance, trusting only the evidence of experience, we find no separate objects, people, entities, selves, or things. We find only ourself, not our personal self, a collection of thoughts and feelings, but ourself, the true and only self of infinite, indivisible, self-aware being. Referred to as God in the religious traditions, referred to as consciousness in gatherings such as this, and referred to as I in common parlance. I'm not speaking of some extraordinary experience to which only a few enlightened sages have access. Everybody knows the experience to which I am referring. The common name for it is love. When you feel you love someone or are in love, do you not feel to a greater or lesser extent that you are one with that apparent other? Is that not precisely what the experience of love is? The dissolution of the sense of separation between yourself and the other. In other words, love is not a relationship. It is the collapse of relationship. It is the absence of self and other. In other words, it is the recognition of our shared being. It is a recognition of reality. Why is it that everybody loves the experience of love above all else? It is because each of us, all apparently finite minds, long, above all else, to be divested of their seeming separation. All the separate self truly longs for is to be divested of its sense of separation, its limitations. The experience of beauty is exactly the same experience, but in relation to an object rather than to a person or an animal. When you feel the experience of beauty whilst walking in a landscape or listening to a piece of music, do you not feel to a greater or lesser extent that you merge with the music or the landscape? Is there anyone here who has not had that experience? Is there anyone here who, on listening to a piece of music or walking in the landscape, has not felt themselves dissolve into the music or the landscape? Who has not felt the sense of separation between themselves and the object dissolve? Isn't that why we love to walk in nature or to listen to music? All the separate self truly longs for is to be divested of its sense of separation, to be relieved of the apparent limitations that seem to confine us to a cluster of thoughts, images, feelings, sensations, and perceptions, and returns us, as it were, to our origin, our source, or our essence.